All right, we're back. It's another very, very cold day outside, so thankfully we are in here in the heat. So I think we're just going to dig in right away. I want to start on the brakes. So I'm just going to roll up here. We're going to get the master booster out of this truck. We'll start ripping some brake lines out and start putting some new stuff in. Just like that, she's out. Alright, so I had just chopped this line off. When we pull the 8/8 out, you can see these fittings are pretty gross. This has obviously already been replaced at one point in time. There's a union right there, and this line looks like crap, man. Like, it looks rough. So I think, as much as it pains me to do, I think that we are just going to rip that whole line out all the way back to the ABS module, and I guess we'll just redo that whole entire line. I really hate to splice it somewhere and then have it fail like a week after we put it on the road. That would suck. So I'm gonna dig in and get this whole line out. Yeah, see, look at that. As soon as I started, I don't even have the brake line out of the truck yet, and already cracked, leaking. So that would have been a problem for sure. So it's a good thing we're doing this. All right. Got this whole thing out. This was a mess. This also rotted and broke off here somewhere. Looks like there's a spot leaking here. Maybe looks like it was starting to leak there just from me touching it. So it was a good call to rip all this out. You can kind of see like this here. Yeah, pretty gross. So I definitely think this was the right choice. So I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna get the rest of the lines out of the truck, and then we'll dig in and we'll start replumbing the system. Alright, so I got, this is the line that comes off the front of the master. This is for the front brakes, and it looks, I mean, oh, this looks really good. Like, you think, oh, we can reuse this will be fine. But then you get down near the frame rail and it's super gross. I don't even know what's going on there. Obviously this end we cut off when we were ripping the IFS out, but this looks pretty rough actually here. So I guess we're just gonna redo this line as well. So what we're going to do for the front brakes is I have these Skyjacker extended brake lines. These are for F350. We are going to replumb the whole brakes system using these at the calipers instead. I think that's going to be more than long enough to do the job. So I'm going to get these loosely installed so I can see where my line's going to end, because this used to be retained in the coil bucket, which isn't there anymore. So we may have to plumb this one a little differently, or maybe we're going to have to make our own retainer to bolt to the frame or something. I don't know yet for sure. We'll figure that one out. But what I think I'm going to do, I think I might actually do before I make that one, I think I might get these in, figure out where our crossover is going to be, and run the crossover from side to side, and then we'll redo this one and cut into it. So I'm going to tinker for a little bit, and once I have this all sorted out, I'll come back and show you what I got. Alright, here's the plan. We're going to take our braided line and we're going to retain it somewhere around here. Maybe we'll use this hole. That way we can have our T right there, go straight up to the master, just like the stock system, and then we can go straight through this hole over to the passenger side. So I'm going to go grab some scrap, whip up a bracket, and we'll keep moving. Driver's side is installed, and passenger side is installed. And that means the next step is just to start bending up some brake lines. Okay, front brakes are now plumbed from side to side. So I think the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go down to the rear axle and plumb from the rear all the way up to the Rams module. That way everything under the truck is done, and then we can just go up under the hood, throw the master booster in, and then we'll plumb the two brake lines that come down from there. Alright, I want to start plumbing the brake lines on the rear axle today and see if I can get that done. But obviously they go directly to the drop line, so I need to put one in. So I thought this was kind of interesting. This is the stock rear brake line for a F350, and this is an extended stainless steel brake line from Rough Country, which they advertise for up to a 6-inch lift. So what I thought was interesting, if we just bear with me one moment here, if we stretch these out, you will see here that the Rough Country line is actually only about 1 inch longer than the regular old F350 line. So really, if you're doing anything up to a 4-inch lift, you don't even have to buy extended lines. You can just buy lines for an F350, which is pretty cool. But since we already have the stainless steel in the front, and I already have a stainless steel line for the rear, of course we're going to use that one. But I just thought that was kind of interesting. So I guess I'm going to go slap this thing in the truck, and then we can start bending up some brake lines for the rear. And just like that, the rear brakes are now completely plumbed all the way to the RAVs module, which means they're basically now done under the truck. So I'm going to roll out, and we're going to go take a look at our new master cylinder and brake booster. This is the original master and booster off Bronco, and this is our new pair that we're going to be putting on here shortly off of a 1996 F350. So we're going with them because the rears are from a 96, but there's a little more to it than that. It has to do with the bore of the master cylinder. So this particular one is 1.25 inches, whereas this little guy is only 1/16. So this thing flows a ton more fluid than this one does. So we're going with this one because we want to make sure that we have enough fluid available when we're pumping the pedal to get the full use of brake system. So, you know, you can go bigger. The Super Duties have a 1/5/16. You can get up into like 1/3/8, and some really, really big ones on the newer trucks. But I don't think it's necessary for this thing. We're only going to be running a 35-inch tire, so I can't see the need for some huge master cylinder, because all that's going to happen is the more fluid you're using, or the more fluid available to you when you pump the pedal, the twitchier the brakes are going to get. And we don't want that. We want this thing to handle as if it's a stock vehicle, so that you get in, anybody can get in it and just drive it, and the brakes work the way you would expect. So because of that, we're going right to the stock F350 master cylinder. I think it's going to be fine. Same thing with the booster. Obviously the booster is huge by comparison, but we need that because if you're going to be using bigger brakes and a bigger master cylinder, the pedal's going to get harder. So you compensate for that by going with the big booster. So it's the same thing. We could go to the Super Duties, we could get a Hydro Boost unit. I actually have one over on the shelf. But again, it's not something that's really necessary for this truck. It's only a 35-inch tire. So this is going to be more than enough to make this thing stop great without being overpowering to the point where the brakes get twitchy or the tires want to lock up. So this should work out really well. So I'm going to grab a ruler here, because before we put the booster on, I need to measure for the depth on the push rod to make sure that this is set right. I've never really ran into one that was way off. I've tweaked them a little bit, but it's usually not very much. So we're gonna set that. We're measuring our booster here, and we are basically at 1 inch, right to the tip here. So that's our baseline, and so all we're gonna do is grab our caliper, measure our master. And we're going to do a little bit of math here because we got 1.4, but that's to this surface here. So do some math, subtract this gap off, and it actually comes out right around 1 inch as well. So as expected, it's correct, but of course you always want to check it anyway. So we know that's good, so I can put that in the truck now, and then we'll come back and we will start bleeding the master so we can put that in. Okay, booster's bolted back up to the firewall. We got our brake switch installed, so let's move on to the master. I'm gonna put this thing up dry, which I know you're really not supposed to do. You really should bench bleed these things before you install them in the vehicle, but I don't have brake lines yet. So I really need this master installed so that I can finish plumbing the brakes. So for now, you're gonna have to bear with me. We're just gonna put it in so I can start making or finishing brake lines, and then we'll go back. And we gotta, I mean, brake system's completely empty. You know, there's not a single drop of fluid in this thing anywhere. So I'm still toying with the idea of just skipping the bench bleed because everything's dry, filling the master up, cracking the wheel cylinders, and just letting it bleed for a couple hours while I'm doing some other projects. But I'm sure that'll be dumb and bite me in the ass, so more likely than not, I'll get these brake lines made, and then we'll pull the master out, bench bleed it, and put it all back together again a second time. Alright, okay. Master cylinder is now installed. See, I have my new line plumbed. So now, there it is. It's all you see. Nice, clean. So that's it. System is plumbed. I'm going to go through it. I'm going to double check every fitting, make sure everything is tight, and then I'm going to put some fluid in the master and start bleeding the whole system. Alright, there we have it, man. Brakes are installed. I am currently in the process of bleeding them, but I mean, that's nothing special. So I'm going to get that done, and then we're going to move on to the next part of this project, which is this mess under the hood. I think I would like to tear into the motor next. There's all sorts of stuff we should be doing. Water pump, timing chain. I got rotted vacuum lines. That one over there I got to fix. So who knows what else we're going to find when we dig in here. We are definitely going to get rid of this alternator and go for 3G. We're going to do the Saginaw power steering conversion. So there's all sorts of stuff coming, all in the name of making this thing a nice driver. So I'm going to continue to tinker with these brakes for the rest of the day, I think, and try and get them all bled. And when we come back, we'll start on the engine.